Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are a number of sections to this bill, and I had originally contemplated going through each one of them just to make sure that the folks in the room are fully aware of what they're voting on.
I believe they all read the bill.
I'm certain everyone has thoroughly delved deep inside of it. The focus is on clearly in the Finance Committee about the increases in fees and so forth, but this is all subject to a significant policy change. So I hope you'll grant me the latitude. I'm going to be brief, but I'm just going to speak about the 18 to 21 issue kind of globally because I think it goes to the fees. I'm certainly not advocating that anyone take up smoking. I started smoking when I was 13 years of age. I don't even know what the lawful age of smoking was at the time. And then I smoked for over 20 years. And I'm happy to say I haven't had a cigarette in quite a few years now. But that was a decision that I made. I don't know that it really was a smart decision when I was 13 to make that for myself. But again, I was only 13 years old and a minor. And I guess that's the issue I have with this bill is that I think we're setting a somewhat dangerous precedent by saying that someone who is of majority age in this state, 18 is traditionally what we consider to be someone of majority age, that someone over that age might have less rights than someone else over that age. We're essentially saying that if you're 20 years old, you have less rights than someone who is 21 years old. That's a concern I have. And I don't even know that this bill has a great deal to do with smoking itself, because I think the majority age was established most significantly when we determined as a society that the right to vote would be 18. And we chose that age as the age that we felt that people were in a position to make decisions. And what greater decision can you make than to choose your elected officials? So to me, that's a very important point in our history, that 18 is considered the age when you are a decision maker as an adult. And this bill is really about limiting a certain portion of our population's decision-making process. I've got a few other issues with it too. I mean, first and foremost, I think it suggests that somehow the people that are in this building have more smarts than the people outside this building, and that we should decide for them what their decision should be if you're between 18 and 21. And based on the finances that our state is in, I would suggest that that is at least suspect. This bill simply violates the rights of 18 to 20-year-olds, and those people are our constituents. I have a lot of trouble as a representative who was elected by the people in my district to be sent here to represent them, taking away their rights, even if they ask me for it, because their right is their right. And if they want to make a decision not to smoke, I applaud them for it. But it should not be me deciding for another adult who elected to put me in office what their rights are. I get the whole notion that we're talking about smoking because it's a health risk. And I think we all recognize that, but there are a great many health risks in the world. And if we set this precedent to say that the legislature has the right to say for an adult person that you should not be making a decision that might affect your health, what is next? We will certainly be able to make that stretch into deciding what people eat, whether they should have sugary foods or they should eat carbs, or whether they should get enough sleep, whether they should even go outside without a coat on. I don't think that we really have that right, and it concerns me. It also brings me to a larger point, which is that the Connecticut legislature and legislatures all across the country seem to think that it's perfectly acceptable to tax cigarettes at a high rate. And this always struck me as odd, because the notion behind taxing something is that you're deriving revenue for it for a purpose. I would say that the people that support our state budgets would say that every dollar that is spent in those budgets is valuable and needed to be spent. And therefore, the ways that money is derived in the form of taxes and revenue obviously must be relevant and must be important. Otherwise, why would we be looking for that money? So I always find it somewhat hypocritical when we say we don't want people to smoke, but then we add taxes on it, and then we use that tax money to fund programs which we obviously think are important. I also wonder why we're picking 21. It seems somewhat arbitrary to me. If it's a bad health decision to smoke when you're 12 or 13 or 15 or 18 or 21, why is it not a bad decision when you're 22? What would happen if there was an amendment to increase this to 18 to 22 instead? Would we have a change of heart about whether it's a valid idea or a noble or novel idea, as I heard described? Well, what about 23 or 25? If smoking is simply a bad health decision and this body thinks we have the right to tell people whether or not they should make bad health decisions who are adults, then we should ban smoking altogether. I get it. There's a lot of pressure out there from our constituents, a lot of people who have a gut reaction who think that smoking is bad. And so do I. I smoked for many, many years, and it was very, very hard to quit. And I will admit that it was very addictive, and it was a difficult thing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I knew every time I smoked a cigarette, it was a personal choice, and I could quit. What was most important to me at the time was to smoke, and then later I made a decision that I wasn't going to because my health mattered more to me. I don't like disempowering people from making choices, period, especially when it affects them personally and no one else. I'll just end by saying to please consider what precedent we're setting, whether or not we should be determining whether certain adults in our society who have the right to make their own decisions and even to make the ultimate decision of voting should lose the right to make their own decision about their own health choices. I just can't go that far. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.